Well, Larry Goldberg, you and I have enjoyed many, many, many good news Mondays and good news Fridays and sometimes in between. And that doesn't get much better than today's good news Monday.
Well, it could have gone up 50 points instead of 12 points or 11 points.
That's true. But, I don't think I made a claim earlier today on X. I said, I didn't see this one coming.
No, none of us did.
No, I
don't know anybody who did.
Right. So it's been kind of interesting. Dan Ives, you responded to Dan Ives earlier today. Dan Ives said, AI names like Palantir and Microsoft are at the top of the list of our revolution winners basket, but Tesla is the most undervalued AI play in their view. Dan
is right.
Yeah.
Dan is right. I don't know if these AI names are fully valued yet, but they are very highly valued.
Right.
But Tesla has not had much, if any, value assigned from its AI work. And we may be seeing a re-rate of that. I mentioned that there's some component, we don't know what it is,
right?
Some component in the price that reflects, the full self-driving, Optimus, and that all falls under the rubric of AI.
Right.
So the extent that it is there or not, I don't know. Now, there could be a big breakthrough in the energy revenue, energy earnings as well as revenue in this quarter. I've spoken about this before, that there is a huge reserve building,
right?
Huge reserve
right.
building in the energy earnings, not just the revenue, but the earnings. And we're beginning to see that trickle in. It's trickling in very slowly. It'll take another year or two to get full flower. There's that. And there's also the fact that the numbers have improved on sales quite dramatically in the last week or two.
Yes.
So every pundit is busy upping their numbers. Every Tesla X retail pundit is busy upping their, and analysts, right now the analyst number is like 439,000.
436 is the
436. Okay. Troy has it lower. Even AJ has
Let's go ahead and go through them, Larry. I got them right down here.
Okay, great.
So Peggy put them out here a little earlier today, put them all in one place for us. So he's got Futuraza, who I spoke to earlier today, and I will put a card up for that interview later. Futuraza, he's got him just slightly wrong because Brian changed his number on air. He changed it from 430 to 429,999. And that was because James Catt was at 430, so he needed to be, take the under on that. So James Catt's at 430. Peggy himself is at 426,523. I don't know where these guys get these right down to the anyway. And then I can't get enough is at 426,037. Troy raised his dramatically today to, I think I'm getting this wrong now. I'm very sorry. I said a couple of things wrong. Go back here. That was James Catt is actually at 426,523. James Catt's the one that's at 426,523. Curious Peggy is at 426,037. I cannot get enough is at 423 even. Troy raised his dramatically from 415 to 420 yesterday, and Gary Black is at 419,992. So he's going to be the low man on the list.
Yeah, my own inclination is that we're going to beat the 430.
Okay,
and we're going to beat it quite handily. I think we're closer to 435 than 430.
Oh wow, okay. So that would put you at the top of the list then. So you're
I would take the over on everything I've heard so far. That's what I'm thinking. When Troy catches up like this, very often he doesn't catch up fast enough.
Uh-huh.
Because I mean, I saw the what was going on at the Raleigh Delivery Center today. I've heard from others on X about what's going on in their delivery center, and I spoke to some folks in Europe about their experiences, and it looks like an extremely strong last month of the quarter, and it's been very strong in China.
Yeah.
So I think there's a surprise. That's my guess.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll all come out tomorrow. Now, if we are, of course, I think if you're right, or even if it's anything over 430, maybe there still be some trim on this run up tomorrow, because there's always going to be a possible profit taking round. But I don't think this run up has anything to do with the numbers. I
agree with that.
I agree with that. Past the numbers now.
I don't think it's the numbers. I think it's the realization seeping into the marketplace at several levels. Look, nobody can ever know. I mean, there were some very big buyers in the market today, very big buyers.
Yes,
because the volumes are just
yeah.
And that may have to do with people getting caught on the short side of the trade and having to buy in very, very rapidly. I mean, the stock is very liquid. So it's not as if the shorts have to scramble too hard. But I mean, a run up of 10 points when you're short, on an end of the month play is an incredibly difficult thing to get right. But it could have had the impact on the look. So many things impacted the volume because the volume was so high. It had to be all the above, right?
Right. Yes, absolutely.
So,
well, I don't know if this had anything to do with it, but ARK was out today with their note. They put out occasional notes on the various companies they follow. And so their share price now for 2029, their bull case is 3,100. Their expected case is 2,600, and their bear case is 2,000. And I'm not surprised by any of those numbers, but I suspect that every single person watching the show right now would be thrilled with the bear case.
Yeah, well, those numbers have been around for a while now. It's not like they're brand new. They've been around. This is not new, but I mean, time will tell. Time will tell. We have so many irons in this fire now.
Well, Larry,
8-8 is only a month away now. A month and a half.
Yeah, I like to try out my new theories on you, Larry. So here's my newest theory, all right? I think that FSD will be complete this year, feature complete this year. Probably will be level 4 this year, maybe early next year.
There is no way.
Okay. And I think Cybertruck and robotaxis will be on the road in 2025. Okay.
Now, there's a fair chance of that. Cybertruck is already on the road. You mean
CyberCab. I
think there's a chance that may be. I'm skeptical, but there's a chance that may happen by the end of the year. The chances of being feature complete is possible, but feature complete is one thing. Being truly level 4, being, this year is, I think, out of the question. I really do. I think I think we'll be very lucky to get there by mid of next year.
All right.
So more likely towards the end of next year.
Okay. So these are the percentages I put on those. I give both of those a chance, or all three of those, a 70% chance in 2025, because I see there's still a 30% chance that they just won't be able to figure it out. There'll be something that'll keep it from happening there.
Well, machine claims that they may not get there because of hardware 3. He thinks hardware 3 may not, and he's got this clue that Elon said the delay in releasing this version was because it's very difficult to fit all this inference into this
Oh,
this
okay.
chip.
All right. Okay. So I'm giving that a 70% chance. Now, on the other side of the coin, I give Optimus a 95% chance of producing significant value in 2025. So in some ways, the Optimus is a better bet than the robotaxi.
Well, there's a reason it's called Optimus, is because you took the name Optimist.
Well, okay, but disagree. Do you disagree? Do you think there's less than 90% chance that Optimus will be providing value, meaning the 1,000 robots in the factories as a 500, it doesn't matter, 300, I don't care. 1,000, I'm saying 1,000 or 2,000, like Elon says, next year in the factory, providing maybe $1 billion worth of actual value to Tesla in 2025.
If it's $100 million, I will celebrate.
Okay, but do you think there's a 90% chance that happens?
No.
Okay, what's your percent?
70.
70, and what
70% chance of potentially up to $100 million, but probably closer to $50 million.
Okay, what's your percentage on 50 million?
I think it's a good 75% chance.
All right, and then what is your percent chance that CyberCab and Tesla is FSD is feature complete and level 4 and robotaxis are on the road in 2025?
0.
2025, not 24, 25.
Oh, 25.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. 25, I think 70% chance.
Okay, so you would be about the same percentage.
I think by the end of next year, we will have clear line of sight to both those opportunities. And the fact that they're happening in 2025 doesn't matter. Sorry, we're 2024. In 2025, we are going to clear visibility to both those opportunities. And the fact that it's only happening in 2025 doesn't mean that the share price will not reflect the true value of that.
Right.
Remember, we only have to see a pop.
Yes.
We only have to see clarity on both those issues.
Right.
In order to place value or to be able to determine value. And the share price can pop. Now, there are a million other factors. What about competition? What about, costs? What about product sales in the meantime? All of the, and what about cash? What about, I am a lot less sanguine about the amount of capital we have in the bank than some people. I think we're going to be in a tough cash position within 2 or 3 years at the rate we're going.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not worried about it. I think we have plenty of ability to borrow money or to raise money in other ways. That's not what troubles me. But I mention this because, we had this conversation for years about let's pay shareholders back money.
No.
Crazy stuff. But let me get off my bandwagon. I think your argument about this stuff being in the factory or that, we're at level 4 or whatever for 2025 is really aimed at the question of trying to determine the value of the shares.
Well, it's partially that. It's partially just the fun of the accomplishment. And right now but I'm also talking share price. And so I do think, so you're saying you give them about equal weight in terms of accomplishing revenue streams and accomplishing the levels that we're talking about in 2025, not one more than the other. But I think the market and the average retail investor right now thinks that robotaxi is a much higher chance of happening than the Optimus.
Yeah, because they have much more visibility on the issue and they're closer to the problem.
Right.
But they're both incredibly hard problems.
Yeah.
And we may be a year or 2 or 3 too optimistic. We just don't know the level of the problem. One thing we do know, and this is where I think machine may be wrong, one thing we do know is that the capability of these tools, of these algorithms and these tools of these models
Right.
are getting more and more and more powerful,
Right.
with less and less and less inference capability.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm less worried than machine is about the ability of the existing 6 million cars with the hardware 3 to be able to accomplish the task.
Right.
But like machine and like everybody else, I just don't know how tough this task really is.
Right.
You don't know, I don't know. And the same is true of Optimus. So I think that by the end of next year, we will have much better visibility.
Right. Right.
So whether we have the stuff in the field or we don't have it in the field, we'll have much better visibility, and we'll be able to calculate what returns are likely to be. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. So
and that's very optimistic.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
Sorry, that's, let me rephrase that. It's not optimistic. That's a very attractive investment
Outlook.
possibility.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So then on another part of the, so much news today, so much news the last couple of days, I'm just overwhelmed. But one of the things that happened today is we got a chance to view the actual response by the Tesla lawyers to the case in Delaware.
Yeah.
And of course, their claim, the judge's claim was that the plaintiff in the case believed that the richest man in the world was overpaid and therefore needed they needed to throw out his paid package. Of course, we know that the board, that the shareholders.
Let me interrupt you, because I think what you're saying is not correct.
Okay, I'll let you go.
The judge did not say that. Sorry, the plaintiff and the judge did not hold that Elon was overpaid. She held that the process to pay him was flawed.
Okay.
Now, she kind of let slip that she kind of feels that he was, I mean, nobody can say he was underpaid. By the way, he hadn't been paid anything. But anyway,
that's right.
I think what she was saying is, look, she thinks it's an incredible amount of money to pay anybody, but she has to go by the law. And what she found in the law was that the process by which it was negotiated was flawed. It was flawed because it was negotiated between non-independent parties and Elon, and that the flaws in the process, there were other flaws as well, but that was the primary issue. And the other flaws as well were not sufficiently or fully disclosed, not fully and not sufficiently disclosed to shareholders, so their vote was null and void because they were not fully informed in that vote.
Right.
That's the underlying issue at hand.
Okay.
And that was the basis in law why she could say no. I mean, one got the sense from her judgment that she wanted to say no.
That's right.
And she found, by the way, one of the things that was unique about this judgment was that she found every single argument for the plaintiff, every single facet of argument she found for the plaintiff, which is very unusual, I have to say, in such a complex case. All right.
And in fact, just because, once in a while I like to pat myself on the back, I was the first person to point that out.
Well, we can argue that. I actually think I was the one.
Oh, you think you were the first? Okay.
Yeah,
well, I'll say we were tied then.
Probably so.
Okay.
However, the judge agreed to hear the argument of why the revote changes this thing.
Right.
And weirdly enough, she kept the date for the arguments by the lawyers in regard to their payment.
Right.
To be held before the argument about the
Right.
which I found troubling.
Me too.
But we have to remember that it's just the hearing, not the decision.
Right.
So she's not obviously going to make a decision before she hears this case. She's agreed to hear the case, the argument about the revote.
Right.
She's agreed to hear it. We were troubled, you and I were both troubled by the fact that she's still going to keep the date of the hearing on the payment. But we can relax to the degree that that's just a hearing. It's not. She's not going to make a decision. At least I believe she'll make a decision. No. It's just the hearing, and I don't think we should be too troubled by the fact that she had the date, she had the docket on the date.
Right.
So why would she put it off if she can get that done? Because if Tesla fails in their attempt to have her change it, then she's had that done, and so she can keep the case moving. So I kind of have come to terms with that.
Okay.
But I did read all 52 pages of the entire submission today, and I have some notes.
Okay, and so this is the submission that the Tesla lawyers made.
Correct.
To support the fact that the revote should be dispositive. It should be the thing that the judge should, or that the judge should pay attention to it in making a decision with regard to the compensation package.
It shouldn't be dispositive, and she shouldn't pay attention. It should be determinative.
That's the word I was looking for.
And she should rule accordingly. And the point about it is that, you know, the 13,400 words of this 52-page document, which is a quarter of the size, by the way, of the judgment, it is very strong. I'm not a lawyer.
Nope.
Here is my non-lawyer reading of the document. Now, I will tell you, I've been in a few court cases in my life, a lot of court cases. One tends to in the software world and in the corporate world. And I've also had to read a lot of legal cases because we've had to make some decisions based upon the law. And we've been advised by lawyers, of course, but this is a very strong document. Okay. It is strong in the logic, but it's very, very strong on the law. It cites many, many cases, Delaware specific, but also New York, Pennsylvania, and California, and many, many, many of the states which are large corporate domiciles, which all state or all point to the healing power, the decisive power of a revote.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
In particular, Delaware law is not only case supportive, but it's also law supportive. There's actual law that says the shareholders revote is determinative.
Oh, wow.
And it makes a very strong case about the power of this decision, because the levels of disclosure are such that it's almost never been done before. Because what they've done is they've taken this whole 200-page judgment and included it. And they've summarized it in, the Tesla have summarized that judgment, showing just how negative it was in that summary that they actually quote from the summary, or point to the summary, and they disclose everything the judge said. And then, of course, the process, they handed this to this independent board member
Right.
that is not friendly with Elon, doesn't go to parties, doesn't go on vacation with him, has no financial benefit of great value from the company, and is not dependent upon the company for her wealth or her well-being.
Uh-huh.
And she ran this program with, these advisors, and they give the detail of what they did. And they came to this decision without any pressure, input, or direction from the board or from Elon himself. They only met with Elon once at their request, and they had an interview with him. But other than that, he had no impact on them, on her,
Right.
And on the process. And then they published it, and it received more publicity and more detailed analysis than almost any other vote ever in corporate history.
Interesting.
This is the crucial paragraph.
Yeah.
With a record turnout of over 80% of outstanding shares present in person or by proxy,
Right.
72% of the disinterested voting shares were voted in favor of ratification, similar to the 73% that voted for the original compensation plan in 2018. Among others, Tesla's largest institutional shareholder, Vanguard, disclosed that it voted for the ratification of the 2018 agreement despite having previously voted against the award in 2018, explaining that, quote, the unique circumstance of evaluating the plan retroactively eliminated our concerns that significant pay could be earned without company outperformance relative to the market or peers, unquote.
Uh-huh. Okay.
The arguments the lawyers make go to very great lengths to indicate just how broad the consensus was. They quote major shareholders. They talk about major shareholders voting for again and again and again. And of course, they mention the retail shareholders. Then there's a lot of argument of law. As I've said a little bit earlier, they actually give enormous detail of law supporting the ability of a retroactive vote to cure a failure in the initial vote, and show that in Delaware, this is actually written into the law. It's actually a statute in addition to case law.
Right.
I'm no lawyer, but I did stay at the Holiday Inn Express last night.
Okay.
This is a very powerful brief. A very powerful brief. It does also talk about the arguments that the lawyers are making of how much they've earned for the shareholders. The Tornado's lawyers are making the argument that they've saved the shareholders so much money they should be paid. Yeah. Yes. And it is very well written on this score. How we all feel. Well, they expressed that very well.
I see. Okay.
So I'd recommend everybody reading the 52 pages.
Of course. Yeah.
But on balance, this is a very, very, very strong document. I would be shocked, truly shocked, if she doesn't find for the company. But, and here's the most important thing, whereas based upon her original judgment, the chances, I think, in the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals, sorry, not Supreme Court.
Well, it's actually the Supreme Court of Delaware, which is the only appeal. Yeah.
The Court of Appeals in Delaware. I think that on the original case, our chances of prevailing would have been quite small, in the 25% range, 20-25%. Now, I believe our chances of succeeding, if she still finds against the company, which is quite possible, I think she's a judge on a mission.
Uh-huh.
I think she may find a way to overcome, the legal arguments.
Mhm.
It's been known for a judge to do that kind of thing. I think now the chances of winning in the appeal are very high. I would rate it above the 75% level.
All right. Well, that's very cool, Larry. I'm glad you did that work for us. And I understand you're going to post your information in detail on X shortly, so everybody can look for that and check out the specific writing that you did with regard to that. That's fantastic. Well, all right, let's turn our attention to the economy. By now, everyone who follows this channel, and even you, Larry, probably know that my number one rule doesn't have to be anybody else's number one rule, but my number one rule in trying to figure things out is that when something has run up or down too much, there's almost certainly going to be a correction. And I've been screaming for a correction in the equities for weeks now. It hasn't happened yet. And then about 6 months ago, I think it was, I said there was going to be a correction in the bond market when yields on the 10-year got to around 5% and stuck there and stuck there and stuck there. And I said, they're not going over 5% and there's going to be a correction. That was one of the predictions, Larry, that the clock that is only right, a broken clock gets right. I actually hit that baby right out of the ballpark. So here's what Market Watch is saying about bonds right now after a massive run up over the last two sessions. It says on a year-over-year basis, Bespoke found just 1 month in the previous 41 where returns have been positive for the B of A 10 plus year US Treasury total return index since 1978. It says, relative to history, this type of consistent weakness for such an extended period has been unprecedented. Bespoke said of long-term treasuries, the only other period where there was any sort of consistent weakness was from October 79 through October 1981. So the yield on the 10-year treasury note was trading about 11 basis points higher Monday afternoon at around 448, according to FactSet data. At the last check, bond yields and prices move in the opposite direction. Jim Schmigel, chief investment officer at SEI, said in an interview Monday that he expects the 10-year yield will rise to about 5% by the end of 2024, as inflation will probably stay sticky. Still, he anticipates the Fed will start cutting interest rates this year as parts of the economy, like manufacturing, are under pressure after the central bank rate hikes aimed at combating the elevated inflation in the U.S. I'm saying that we might get close to 5. I don't think we will, but the bonds have run out way too far and equities have run out way too far, and both are going to be correcting. And you say?
This is very tough to call. Equities haven't run a long way. The Magnificent Seven have run a long way, or the Magnificent Six have run a long way. Equities have been, at best,
Besides the Magnificent Six.
Besides the Magnificent Seven. If you take them out of the indices, not that good. So I have the number here somewhere. I actually did the number. I actually got the number. The NASDAQ Composite gained 8.3% in Q2, adding to its 9.1% in Q1. US big tech was responsible for all of S&P 500's Q2 gains and then some. NVIDIA's Q2 performance was worth 2.1 percentage points to the S&P. Apple Alphabet added 1.4 and 0.8 points respectively. The total is 4.3 points more than the S&P's 3.9 gain. And what's worth noting is that US small cap tech was only up 0.6%
Yeah,
in Q2 and down 3.2% year to date.
right.
Investor interest in the sector is limited to very large companies with direct exposure to generative AI.
Right.
Even with Q2's very narrow, and now I'm quoting directly from, this is one of my favorite analysts, 𝐂𝐤𝐥𝐚.
Oh, yes.
He says, US small cap tech was only up 0.6% in Q2 and down 3.2% year to date. He says every sector in S&P is up on the year except real estate, minus 4.1%. Tech and communication services are wildly outperforming, up 17.5% and 17.6%. And the average year-to-date return of every other S&P sector is still plus 5.2%, which annualizes to 10%, the long-run average for US equities. So the market is not overperforming at all. However, if you take the bond rise into account, then you can see that equities are still performing operationally quite well because they're paying this higher interest rate and yet they're still performing at this level.
Right.
So, and if you look at the global markets, we're outperforming the global market.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, the dollar is outperforming. So it's such a mixed bag. It's so difficult to describe what's really happening. Dan, the man, Dan Ives, came on and said, we're not in 1999, the 2000 bust. He says we're in 1995.
Yeah.
We're just at the beginning.
Right. So Larry, let me bring my thesis down a little more completely. And I think we talked about this on Friday, but my thesis is not that we're going to have a big blowout of the equities. My thesis is that we're going to have a 10% pullback. Maybe it's only 5, maybe it's 10, and maybe it's even 20. And it will take the Magnificent Six with it. It'll be part of that pullback because there'll be profit taking, there'll be the summer doldrums, whatever you want to call it. It'll be a temporary short-term pullback, but that by the end of the year, we'll be 5% above where we are now. So
you're looking for a pullback between now and October.
Yep.
And the election will bring Trump back, and then the market will jump. I mean, the market jumped after Trump's last election. The market jumped dramatically. I'll never forget that, actually.
Well, and you saw what happened to the European markets today after the right wing took over in France.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
who knows? I mean, by the way, they never say right wing in France.
They say extreme right wing. Yes.
No, extreme right wing.
Yes, I know.
Anyway,
there is no right wing. There's only
no right
wing and the extreme right. Yeah. Well, okay.
So it's an interesting thesis you have.
See, it's not based on fundamentals at all, and it's not really even technicals. It's more just like the idea that when gold goes up to whatever it was, a month ago, they're at I lose track now of the numbers are so big. 1,400.
20, yeah.
2,400, right? Yeah. It was just too high, and it pulled back. $150. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at that kind of a pullback, but I do believe it'll be up by the end of the year. There's another historical reason, Larry, and that is when you have this much of an increase in the first 6 months of the year, historically, it's like about a 90% chance you're going to end up higher at the end of the year. Then you add in a change of government that even makes the odds. Yeah.
Well, I think the change of government is far from clear. I think we're in a state of political crisis, the likes of which we haven't seen for many, many years. I think you have to go back to Nixon's Watergate to find a time like this again. And so it's very hard to tell what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's a very weird, it's going to be a weird couple of weeks. I guess the Democrats are going to have to figure out if Biden is their man or not their man.
No, I think they have to figure out whether Jill Biden's the woman or not the woman. I mean, Jill Biden is running the country right now. She is running the country. And if you don't believe that, you are willfully blind to the fact that she is running the country. I posted that a little bit earlier. She is operating like Mrs. Wilson in 1914. 1915.
By the way, I ran a poll, Larry, on whether people would rather have Jill Biden run the government or Kamala Harris, and Jill Biden won by a landslide.
God help us all.
Well, okay, Larry. So right now, Tesla is up 12 cents in the after hours. So that proves that the $12 during the day was not a surprise, or in other words, it wasn't just some happenstance, but it doesn't actually prove anything. I'm just kidding. Anyway, but we are up 12 cents in the after hours. We had the Dow Jones up 50 for the day, NASDAQ up $146 on the day, and the S&P up 14. The Magnificent Seven were all up, and the poor Cathie Woods were virtually all down. But the Cathie Woods are impacted by the bond numbers, and the bond numbers were not going in the right direction for the Cathie Woods stocks. So let us now take a look at what the bonds are doing in the after hours. So it's interesting, Larry. We got the bonds have fallen off almost to 1.8 basis points on the 10-year to 4.46. You got the 2-year down close to the same, 1.2, and the 2-month down, not at all, call it unchanged. But the interesting part of all this is, if I do my math again here, I did a few minutes ago, but it's changed a little. We're now down to only 28 basis points between the 2-year and the 10-year.
Getting close.
So this now is the collapse, maybe of that inversion. This is the lowest I can remember it. And the 2-month is now actually, because it didn't change my 5, yeah, it's still over 100 basis points. So that one hasn't collapsed as much, but the 2-year has collapsed for sure. And of course, the 2-year is watched by way more people.
It's what we used to measure.
Right.
Okay, well, it'll be interesting. And next week is Employment Friday, is it not?
This week, yeah, this Friday. Yeah,
this Friday.
That's right.
Be exciting.
Oil up 3 cents. I basically call it unchanged. Natural gas up a little bit, also in the pre-market. Gold, $2.90. That's almost like unchanged. Silver up 0.46, but still under 30. Now, silver has been a more interesting thing to watch because it's gone up a ton in the last 4 years. And that is it's more of an industrial product. So it's kind of interesting to see how it's been, and it's not only industrial, but it's heavily used in tech, in electronics and electrical. Copper down 0.19, $4.40. So it is staying down, not going back to where it was, but it is staying down from that $5.10.
Yeah.
Bitcoin settling down again. It was way up, and now it's only up 950 at 62.8.
It's above 60 and, settling down. I think what is that Japanese company, Mt. Gox, that settlement that payout affected the price last week. I think that's what it was. Right.
Okay. And then we've got the dollar doing a little better now. It was down earlier today against everything, and now it's up a bit against everything. Actually, on the Japanese yen, it is unchanged. And the equities for tomorrow morning, Larry, we've got the Dow down 34 or 0.09, S&P futures down 5 or 0.09. The NASDAQ future down 34 after being hugely up today. So not totally surprising. That is 0.17%. So as we go into tomorrow, the froth might be coming off just a little bit from a major big day. It is a shortened week. People expect lower amounts of trading, people on vacation. Any thoughts as the week progresses, Larry, this week in particular?
I'd love to see what Tesla does tomorrow morning.
Yeah, me too. That's what I'll be getting up in the morning to see. But I'm very interested in the job numbers Friday. Very interested in the
It's going to be a very interesting Friday. Very interesting Friday. We're going to have to, we'll have our work cut out for us.
You will have.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Larry. And to all of you out there, as always, it's been great talking to you.